Welcome to the Hard Won Wisdom Podcast with best-selling author Fawn Germer and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Come here weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network.
Hi, I'm Fawn Germer.
And I'm Michelle Brigman.
And this is the Hard Won Wisdom Podcast. Today is a day I've been waiting for a long time. Trying to get this person to be available is excruciating. You have to actually make an appointment to see her, she's my physician. And she is such a rock star and a specialist on nutrition, diet. And I thought, being that this is the time of year where everybody at least starts a diet, boy, we should get old Dr. J on here. So I want to introduce you all to Dr. Julia Jenkins. So if you look at her bio, she's a board certified family physician. She is a full-time faculty physician educator at the University of South Florida's Family Medicine Residency Program, and really active, a rock star with the Florida Academy of Family Physicians. But I just feel sorry for all of you if you don't have a doctor like this, because this is what medicine should be. Something's wrong, your doctor's there. She really watches out for her people and is so cutting edge, especially on nutrition issues. And I'm always seeing her and having discussions with her about the latest thing and finding out that everything that I think I know about weight loss is generally wrong. And I've always said, because, I'm honest with you all, I've always had a lifelong weight problem, that nobody knows more about weight loss than an overweight person because we've lost it so much. But no, I find out that she knows a lot that I don't know, and things that will speed things up for you and clarify things for you. So, Julia Jenkins, Dr. J, welcome to the show.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fawn. That was very humbling introduction, and just very grateful to be talking to you ladies. I've been listening to your podcast, and I just love what you're doing for the people that listen to this. It's been wonderful. It's wonderful advice.
Well, let's help them lose some weight.
Yes, please. No, I'm excited to be a part of this, because this is probably the main frustration for a lot of people that come to see me. And there's so many myths out there and misinformation out there. And I love kind of busting those myths. I love seeing the light bulb when people go, really? I can have eggs? So anyway, this is exciting for me. I love helping people understand this better.
We were talking yesterday about something that I still can't make myself believe, because you were talking about somebody who was devoted to a very low fat diet. And back in the day, it was you wanted low fat, no red meat, no eggs, all of this stuff. So where are we now? And then we went through that thing where every day you read something different that you were supposed to do. Has that settled down at all? And what are we supposed to do?
Okay, where do I start?
That was a lot.
Back years ago, we talked to people about low fat because we had this concept that if you ate fat, you would get fat. If you ate cholesterol, you'd get high cholesterol. And the body is a lot more sophisticated than that. So the truth is, what really hurts most of us is inflammation. Like, if you haven't heard this word before, it is critical to understand for your health. And you really want to eat in a way that your body is able to fight disease and your body feels healthy and strong, but avoid foods and avoid things that causes inflammation, where your body feels like it's fighting something. So, inflammation, it's our response to COVID. It's our response to Ebola and cancer. It's our body saying something is wrong and I'm in panic mode and this isn't good. So if you're eating a standard American diet, which is not low fat diet, if you can eat low fat and have a very bad diet, you're going to be promoting inflammation and putting yourself at risk for more joint pain, Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, hormone problems, goes on and on and on. So it's not about fat, it's about eating to lower inflammation.
So what would be some of the first signs that you had an issue with inflammation?
Yeah, I mean, people will talk to me about that they feel like mentally foggy, or they just have a hard time getting up out of bed. They don't feel motivated. They feel down. They feel achy. Their skin is drier, or they're having more breakouts or more skin issues. That, there's a lot of subtle signs, like it's affecting your labs in a way that we can see as physicians. And we say, why is your white count off? Why is your liver enzymes, why is your liver enlarged? Why are you suddenly having this? So it can be a combination of things, but it's very prevalent. It's very common.
So it shows up in a blood test.
It can. Yeah, it can.
Michelle, any thoughts on that?
I have lots of thoughts. So, I mean, and before we even talk about some of the impacts if you don't get it treated, what are some ways to prevent getting to the point where you're experiencing inflammation? Like, what can I go home and do differently today?
One of the very simple rules is that if it has more than one ingredient, it probably is going to cause inflammation. So what I tell patients, it can be kind of eye-opening when you actually start reading the ingredients on some of the things that we all commonly eat. We eat the granola bar or the bread or the packaged thing. And if it sounds like you're reading an organic chemistry textbook, then it's not food. It's preservative and additives and the things that are very foreign to our body when you put it in your mouth. So your body is going to see that as, well, this may not be food. This might be a disease that is going to hurt me. So it creates this, what we call inflammatory cytokines. It creates this kind of defense system. So simple rules of thumb is to have one ingredient foods. So beans, almonds, bananas, apples, rice, potato, turkey. If you look at it and you know what it's in it, if you're eating chili and you've got beans and turkey and onions and tomatoes, those are whole foods. That's not going to cause inflammation because your body recognizes that as being natural.
Spices too are fine.
Spices, yeah, absolutely.
And
what about, go ahead, Fawn.
Well, I don't want to back into this. I think I should start with what the listeners actually want to say. I need to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
All right. So, Fawn. One is, I do have patients that come to me and they say, Dr. Jenkins, my daughter's getting married in a couple months. I want to lose weight quickly. Can you help me? And so there are many of us in the primary care world that get training in obesity medicine and weight loss medicine, and we can help you. But I would say for most of my patients, I would not be agreeable to helping with that unless it was a unique circumstance. Because when you have somebody that wants to lose weight, I can help you lose weight really quickly. That's not a terrible. It wouldn't be terribly hard for me to do, but it'll come back really quickly because there's so much tied into weight. So we have to look at your hormones. We have to look at your sleep. We have to look at your stress. We have to look at your habits. We have to look at your diet. We have to look at your activity level. We have to look at the stressors in your life. So if you don't look at the whole lifestyle, we call it lifestyle management, then it's not going to be permanent weight loss. And that's not what I want for my patients. I don't want to street them and treat them. I don't want to offer a quick fix. I really want them to feel empowered to be able to make changes that are sustainable, and they're happy with what they eat and they're happy with what they have to do every day and the choices they have to make every day to be healthy. So they don't feel deprived, like they don't feel like I'm on a diet or I can only eat kale or, that's not what anybody wants. We all want to feel empowered to be able to live a life that we're happy with, but we can obtain that weight and that health that we're looking for.
Well, what the heck is happening as we age and we plateau? Like, We're doing
Yeah.
the behaviors are there, and
Yes.
you can't, no matter what you do, it's like there's a number and you can't get below it. Like, what do you
Yeah.
do to break through that?
There's a couple of things. And one, this is more for women because women have some interesting physiology that's different than men. And that's why men, if they get motivated to lose weight, it just falls off, right? So, testosterone is a performance enhancing hormone. It helps you build muscle, it helps your metabolism. And so just as women, like as we go through aging, we have this hormone imbalance and we tend to have more estrogen than other hormones that starts to change and fluctuate and then gets lower. And that definitely makes it harder for us to lose weight. That has impacts on our metabolism. We also have a certain set point that our weight, that our body likes to stay at. So if you've been at this weight for a long, long, long time, your body doesn't, it gets adapted to a certain weight. It's going to, and if you try to change it, it's going to try to get you back to that average. We call it homeostasis. Like it wants you to go back to where it's been for a long time and it's comfortable. So it can be really hard when you get older to adjust your set point, although not impossible. We could talk about techniques to start readjusting your set point, fasting being one of those, but it definitely gets harder as you age. And then lastly too, the strength training and your muscle mass, because you burn calories at rest when you have good strength. And you guys were talking about this on your exercise podcast. Like it's so critical that you're active and you're keeping yourself strong. Yeah, you go, Fawn.
Fawn's lifting weights on camera if you can't see her.
Yeah, so that helps with your metabolism and it helps you overcome some of the barriers and I'll tell you the last thing, I could just go on and on and on, is that even though in your 20s and 30s you can have pizza and beer and then maybe just jog a mile and be fine, it catches up to you. So your habits of your youth they catch up to you. So even though you got away with it in your 20s and 30s, it's not sustainable over time. And so it catches up with you. And then you have to learn to have healthier patterns and maybe patterns that you never had to have before.
So one of the things earlier on, we need to tell people what's the best approach of what they should be eating. Okay. And then let's talk fasting, intermittent, keto, all of that, gluten.
Yeah. I will tell you that not one diet fits everybody. There's basic concepts, but you have to take into account people's cultures and people's preferences and genetics. So all of us are kind of built a little bit differently. The basic concepts is that the whole foods thing, I think you really should strive to eat less processed manufactured food. So that's a main concept. Another main thing is that we should be mostly eating plant-based foods and not animal products. And so you don't have to be entirely vegan or vegetarian if that's not for you. And that's a very difficult lifestyle to have, even though it's very healthy. But at least 70% or more of your diet should be plant-based. And so when I say plant-based, that includes, seeds and nuts and rice and potatoes and fruits and vegetables. Just anything that doesn't have a hoof and tail is plant-based. So, and then so whole food, more plant-based. And then lastly, eating less sugar and bad carbs, because foods that have a high glycemic index or foods that spike sugar in your blood that causes a lot of insulin to be released are for sure going to promote weight gain. And I can get more into that. I know I've said a lot, but it's a really important, those three concepts. Those are the three basic foundational concepts.
And that there's sugar in things that you think are salty, like Cheetos.
They're healthy.
I tell people, please look at the grams of sugar, because 4 grams of sugar is a teaspoon of sugar. So I'm quite shocked when my kids are eating things, because they'll pick up what seems to be a healthy smoothie over the counter and it's got 48 grams of sugar, which is an astronomical amount, 10 teaspoons or whatever of sugar in it. So the Starbucks Frappuccinos, those cute little Girl Scouts selling cookies, you really have to be very mindful of sugar because it's so prevalent, like it's everywhere. And I tell patients, like, don't feel guilty if you're struggling with your weight, because this is not a willpower issue. Sugar is the new tobacco. And I feel like this is a societal issue. This is something that when you're checking out at the grocery store, you are bombarded by gum that's not healthy and candy bars that aren't healthy and chips that aren't healthy. So you shouldn't feel guilty about yourself, because we're giving our kids sugar as a treat. We're when we socially engage with each other, we're sharing sugary things. It's in a lot of the foods that we eat commonly. So this is very prevalent, and it's a societal issue. It's not a willpower issue. So yeah.
Well, okay. So Michelle and I are on the line, and let's say in order to avoid sugar, we get something sugar-free, a Diet Coke, a sugar-free gum. What's the story with that stuff?
So without getting too nerdy with you guys, it's that it's healthier in that it's not going to raise your insulin. So when you're trying to lose weight, having high levels of insulin all the time is hurting you and is going to be very hard for you to lose weight. So it will help with that. But the problem is, any of we call them non-nutritive sweeteners, like artificial sweeteners and things in diet products, they still trigger the cravings for sweet things, the hormones that tell us that this thing is making me happy, and so I want more of it, which is called dopamine. The artificial diet things still perpetuate that. And so it's shown in research studies that people that drink diet sodas and have diet products will gain weight and will struggle with their weight. So you really should work on the addiction to sugar and not try to replace that. So it's almost like having 12 cigarettes instead of 20 cigarettes. It's better, like it's better, but it's still not great.
Yeah. Michelle,
Well, I haven't.
what are we going to do?
Well, let me ask this one thing. How much, what, if we like to watch numbers, what should be our threshold of sugar intake a day? Because you can track it. Like if you use like a MyFitnessPal or whatever, like is it 20, less than 20 grams? Is it?
Yeah. It's hard to give everybody a precise number, because I feel like it depends what your goals are. What I'll say is that, you shouldn't give up sugar. It's not realistic to say that. And it's actually not necessarily healthy to do that, because again, your body, you should challenge it with sugar, and you should be able to enjoy your life and have a cookie and not feel guilty about it. So it's, you should limit your sugar intake most days, and then enjoy yourself when you're having an event or you're having a cheat day or you're out with your friends. Eat the cheesecake and don't feel guilty about it. So how much sugar should you have per day? Usually I tell patients, if they're getting like those snack bars, that try to aim for 10, 12 grams of sugar or less. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb, but it really has to be kind of individualized.
Yeah. Well, considering that we're probably eating 100 grams to
right.
get
right.
So a little pivot, but I'm curious your thoughts on, I hear a lot about raw foods versus like slightly cooked. What's the story with the difference in your food preparation like that when you are eating real whole food?
Yeah. So some of the cooking process, especially if you fry things, will cause something called AGEs. And this is something that ages you. And that's what's funny. It's an acronym for advanced glycolation end products is the scientific name. But so if you fry things and you char it and you burn it, it can age you. It can accelerate the aging process. And so if you're going to fry things, this is why we use things like coconut oil or avocado oils, because when you fry with them, they don't char and burn as
Yeah.
much as other oils do. So you shouldn't cook with olive oil. You should use olive oil in your salads and cold and on the side, and as a dressing. So raw foods versus not raw foods. I would say that it's okay to eat frozen and canned things. So when we talk about raw foods and cooking foods, I don't want people to be overwhelmed by thinking they have to go get organic vegetables and spend half their paycheck trying to get healthy food. It would just be that try to eat foods as fresh as you can and boil it and bake it. But if you're gonna fry it, be very careful. It may not be as healthy.
Even air frying?
Air frying's better.
What about, and when you say frozen, does that mean that we're safe to eat a healthy choice frozen dinner?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Say that.
No. But again, it's about making things easy for busy working folks and saying that, yes, like if you have like frozen broccoli or you have your microwaved, vegetable or whatever it is, it's okay. That's very similar health-wise to having it right off the, freshly grown. There's very minimal difference because they're pretty good at maintaining a lot of the fiber and nutrients in the canning process and the freezing process.
What about I hear a lot about endocrine disruptors, particularly in how you store food and like using containers. Like what container? Using a plastic container, a glass container? Yeah. What are some of the risks in terms of, I'm eating well?
Yeah.
But am I doing things to counter it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a website, talk a little bit about containers, but I feel like one, just wash your fruits and vegetables really well because you want to be concerned about pesticides and some of the environmental toxins that can be on the food. There's some benefit to doing organic, but you don't have to all organic. So there's an online resource called the Clean 15 that talks about which foods are generally okay to eat not organic, and they're usually ones with a peel. But and the dirty dozen are the ones that you really should spend the money to get organic because they're very commonly contaminated with some of these environmental toxins. But
which would be
container-wise,
what are the dirty dozen?
I'd have to look at the website to see what they all are, but usually
broccoli,
apples. Yeah. There's a whole list of things. And if you just Google, these things, it's really easy to find. But container-wise, plastics, I would say plastics are a problem. So just be careful, especially if you're heating things up in plastic. You don't want to do that. Don't use plastic containers and then leave that in the car because then you'll have microplastics leaking into your food, plastic bags. And this is why people are trying to use more aluminum or paper containers to hold food.
We had one of our previous guests who she started a clean beauty cosmetic brand because of all of these endocrine disruptors that resulted in a brain tumor. And she just went completely healthy. And so you kind of think that that's not going to happen to me. But it's just these things, especially now as we're bombarded by chemicals, being more aware, whether it's looking at the back of the food label, looking at how we're storing food, how we're preparing food, just being much more mindful can make a huge difference in how we are taking care of our body and our health.
No, 100%, because that's why it's so much healthier just to eat the thing that's one ingredient, because we have research showing that diet can impact your risk for breast cancer and colon cancer and other types of cancers. And it's not necessarily environmental toxins. It's just the additives, preservatives that they put in food that cause inflammation. So not only these, chemicals that, but just the processing that goes into manufactured food is causing a lot of chronic disease. So really trying to get away from the manufactured kind of tampered with foods and trying to have more natural food.
What about, so many people are traveling internationally, and you can talk about, I go over to Europe and I can eat pasta and I don't have the same results as I do when I come here. Like, what's the difference in terms of just the standard and to quality of food and here?
Unfortunately, in other countries, they have better standards, and they're a lot more careful about the quality control in place for what they allow into their markets and what they allow into their country. And so I've heard that from a lot of patients, that cereals and pastas and packaged bars and things, that they get a lot of bloat and digestive issues when they're here. And it's interesting, a lot of the same products here have different ingredients in other countries because of those standards. So that's why, again, this is a societal issue and not a personal issue. So it really, all of us should be saying, don't do that to us. This is hard enough as it is. Like, help us to be healthier by having better quality control.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about keto.
Yes.
The whole thing with Atkins. Michelle tells me I have to ask you about healthy poop, but I'm leaving that one for her.
I
right?
talk about this all the time.
I'm talking keto and Atkins, intermittent fasting. Let's focus. I know people want to know about all of that.
All right. So keto, so the basics of that are that your body likes to use glucose. It actually prefers glucose. So glucose is sugar. And when you eat, not just a candy bar, but when you eat a bagel or you eat a carbohydrate, your body breaks that down very quickly into sugars. And so that is kind of the preferred way that your brain and your muscles and your organs gets energy. But the other way that we get energy is ketosis. So ketones, which is kind of a fat burning way that we get energy. And if we don't have glucose readily available, our body will resort to ketones. And there's potential health benefits to that because our brain functions really well on ketones. It actually prefers sugar first because it's easy and it's quick, but it functions very well on ketones. And so historically, we used to recommend the keto diet for people that had seizures and neurologic issues. But this whole keto diet craze is you have to be careful because the keto diet, some of the products that are sold for the keto diet are very manufactured and very, very inflammatory. So, I see the Atkins bars and the keto bars and the keto peanut butter cups, and all these things. They have a lot of additives. They have a lot of chemicals. Even though they're low carb, they're not necessarily healthy. And the other thing I worry about with the keto diet is that it's not sustainable. So for someone to be that restrictive, and I'm not saying everybody, because I've definitely seen patients of mine that generally have a low carb keto diet most of the time, and they can do that. But I think that's the exception. I think most of us do better when we cycle off and on doing low carb keto versus giving us a little, a cheat day or letting us be more lenient at other times. But the benefits of ketosis and is that it lowers your insulin levels and lets you get rid of your fat that you're storing that you don't want. So there are many ways to kind of tap into this ketosis, fasting being one of those, or eating a low carb diet or eating a certain way. So this is how people can lose weight. And this is something that's very accessible.
Yeah, I mean, fasting is something that you've really come a long way thinking on that. Because I remember the first time I told you I was going to do a 5-day water fast, and you looked at
like
me.
You're crazy.
You looked at me. You rolled your eyes. And then there was that day when I was laying in my neighbor's yard, but I made it. I did it, and then. But I think the problem with that one was I did that and I stopped my thyroid medicine. That was kind of a mistake, and it was.
And you didn't consult with me, but that's okay.
Well, okay. So, but I did it again a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And it put me to deep ketosis within 3 days.
Yeah.
And I took my thyroid medicine. I also took supplements of, what's the stuff in
Salts like
Gatorade?
magnesium
Oh,
and
my word.
potassium and
Yeah, all of
sodium.
that. Electrolytes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I got
Electrolyte.
my
Yeah.
electrolyte pills. So this time
Yeah.
I just breezed through it. Of course, I was going to do it again yesterday, but then I decided I wanted dinner, so I didn't. But the last time I did it, because I'd had my medicine and those electrolytes, I felt great the whole
Yeah.
time and when it was done. And so, what is the difference between an extended fast and what it does to you, and then this intermittent fasting, which we're hearing so much about?
So intermittent fasting is just having a certain eating window. So sometimes for patients, that's a 12-hour eating window where you'll eat dinner at 8 o'clock and then you wake up and eat breakfast at 8 a.m. and that you fasted 12 hours. Congratulations. You're doing intermittent fasting. So that would be a very conservative way to do that. A lot of people will do what's called the 16-8. So you'll eat dinner at 8 o'clock. You won't eat again until lunch the next day. So you're kind of restricting yourself to an 8-hour eating window. And what that does is it allows you to lower your insulin levels and start to go into that ketosis, that fat burning, which is what we want, right? But the benefits beyond that, it'll take longer than that fasting to get to the autophagy. So, what is autophagy? This is a word that means it actually means to self-eating, like your body is degrading the weak, damaged. It's getting rid of the junk. It's like degrading the weak stuff, the weak cells, the weak part of you that needs to go. And that's where the magic is. So, if you have someone that needs to lose 100 pounds, or they're, worried about their diabetes, or they're worried about heart disease, and they want to really promote healing and really make sure they're optimizing their health, you want to do an extended fast, because if you can fast for a whole day or 2 days or 3 days, you start to get into that autophagy where your body is now regenerating and it's creating new cells, new growth, getting rid of the weak, broken cells. So that's really where the magic is. And, you've motivated me, Fawn, for sure, to personally try these extended fast. I personally am an intermittent faster. And so I like the 16-8. I'm all about the 16-8. I have never had a weight problem. So that intermittent fasting works for me. I do it a couple times a week. Today I'm going to do a 24. I've done a couple 24s, and you've motivated me, Fawn, to do more extended fasts, because you've told me how amazing you feel, and I've had patients tell me how amazing they feel. And so, it's something that you should. I really like what you said when you said, I felt like dinner, so I ate dinner. You have to listen to your body. You have to be in tune with your body. It takes practice like anything else does. And so if you're not vibing it, you're not feeling it, don't fast for 3 days.
Can you do it like for once a month, and that be like 3 days a month, and that be enough to give you the benefit?
So a lot of the people online that talk about fasting will tell you that you're going to get the best results if you do the fasting with a low carb or keto diet. If you're trying to lose weight, like, you have to do the two together. But yeah, if you're going to do extended fasts 2 to 3 times a month, that would be enough. It just depends on your goals. It really depends on your goals. So people that have 100 pounds to lose, they're going to try to do an extended fast once or twice a week. They may decide to do it more frequently. And I have to preface this by saying, please try to find a healthcare provider that can talk to you about your medications, your thyroid medications, your insulin, your hormones. Like, if you're going to try an extended fast, you have to be careful, because there are medications you might be on that you should not do an extended fast. It'll be dangerous. So make sure that you're, talking with a healthcare provider
And
that has
I want to
knowledge.
make something clear. I don't think that when you lose weight on an extended fast, it stays off. I think what happens is the cravings go to zero. Suddenly, it's like, what was I craving when I was doing this a couple of weeks ago, I just wanted what I would eat normally on Weight Watchers. Give me my beans. I just wanted healthy
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
instead of the
Yeah.
junk. Because, you know, at the
Yeah.
holidays, you go on that.
Yeah.
God, but
Because
think
it's hard because you reset your addiction to those foods and the insulin levels, and you reset, like you had reset. You press the reset button, but society says, well, here, but you still want this, so have it. So
Yeah.
it's not unusual for people to yo-yo, but that doesn't mean you can't get on top of it. If you can learn what those triggers are and you can develop healthier habits, you can conquer it. You can conquer these weight issues. It's just going to take some partnering with people that are knowledgeable and having some good friends to support you and all those things.
Well, I'd say while Fawn was doing her fast, I've done like the standard process, like 21-day elimination diet, bring stuff back in. And I
Yes.
do those about 3 times a year because I like them because they help me just remind myself of maybe some of those bad behaviors that
Yes.
I had picked up. And so it's just sort of like that spring cleaning, but 3 times. So you have plenty of food, but to the point you're making earlier, it's all real food,
Right.
and not junk and sugar and processed. So it's interesting just to see the different ways, to your point earlier, that you can go about it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to figure out what those triggers are. Mine is Pinot Grigio. I tell my family that Pinot Grigio is like the gateway drug for me, because then I start to have the chocolate with it, and then I want to have like the junkier dinner. I want to go out and I'm feeling all relaxed. I want to do all the bad things. I don't sleep as well, so I won't get up to run the next day.
Mhm.
It's good to do a cleanse. Like, it's nice to have like it usually takes about generally a week to get through the cleansing process, and for really like resetting, you want it to be 21 days or 30 days. There's a lot of programs that are either 21 days or 30 days, and that helps you have kind of a clean slate. But
Mhm.
it is like, this is why people, when they start something like a keto diet, they have a keto flu. It's your body adjusting. It's adjusting your hormones, your insulin, your hunger, your cravings, and you go through like a physical, like very difficult process as your body readjusts to that.
you mentioned something that a lot of people are going to need advice on, which is the role of alcohol in the diet.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that a lot of my patients and just a lot of people in general will do. And so for some of us, it's easy to say, I'll only have a glass once in a while. For others of us, that's impossible. If the bottle's open, I'm going to drink the bottle. And, it's sometimes you don't realize it's a problem until it becomes more obvious. So I would definitely reach out for resources. There's some wonderful, online resources that people can look at. There's apps, there's books, there's, talk to your healthcare provider. But it's you shouldn't be. It should be something that you're mindful of. Like, if you're going to enjoy alcohol, you shouldn't need 5.
Right. So,
If you're going to have a margarita, you're going to have a glass of wine, enjoy it, but don't let it own you. Don't be a slave to that. Like, make sure it's a part of your health, that if you're going to enjoy it. But if it's an addiction, if it's something that's difficult for you to say no to, then you really should look at it and say, is this really what I want? And so, for myself, I wouldn't say I'm an alcoholic. I don't think that label is appropriate, but I'm on a dry January because I know if I allow it'll be every night. I have a really stressful job, so I'll go home and I'm exhausted, and I've been kind of carrying a lot of emotional burden from my patients, and I'll say, I need a glass of wine. I just need a glass of wine, and I'm going to relax, and it'll all go away, and I'll feel better. And it's easy to get into that habit of doing that when I get home. But if I get away from it a little while, I start to realize that no, I could go for a walk with my husband, or I could play with my kids, and I feel just as good. So I was just in a bad habit. Like I just needed to back away from it for a little while.
So habits. You are a huge fan of the Mediterranean diet?
Yeah, I think that it's a good structure for a diet where those key concepts that I was talking about are spelled out very well. So there's a lot of research in the world of medicine and for dietitians and nutritionists that the Mediterranean diet is probably the best of all the diets. It's because it emphasizes plant-based foods, it emphasizes healthy fats, it emphasizes whole grains and fiber. And so that for health purposes, it's probably the best diet.
And does that make you lose what, an average of 2 pounds a week, 1 to 2? No,
So it depends how you do the Mediterranean diet. So when patients tell me they're going to become vegetarians, but they're eating macaroni and cheese, you're not going to lose weight. When patients go on a Mediterranean diet and they're eating pita bread with mostly grapes and wine, you're not going to lose weight. So you have to get back to those foundational concepts. If you want to lose weight, don't eat as much sugar and bad carbs. So really try to keep your insulin levels low, and be careful about timing of when you're eating, like fasting or, trying to not eat late at night, and make sure you're active, and make sure that you're not doing risky things like alcohol and things like that are going to make it harder. So I wish Fawn, I wish I had kind of that like quick answer, but there's no quick answer, but insulin is key in this. Like if you want to read about glycemic index, there's a lot of good things online about which foods are high glycemic foods and which ones are low glycemic foods. So general rule of thumb, if you want to lose weight, if it has a glycemic index above 50, it's not going to help you. You got to kind of back away from that. So oatmeal's good, and cashews, almonds are good. They're low glycemic. Beans, lean proteins, eggs, cheeses.
Do you think about calories and portions when you're talking about these things?
Yes and no.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? I think people get caught up in calories, and if I've found that counting calories doesn't work, right? It's not about calories. It's about feeling satisfied and not having to have cravings and feel like you're still hungry. So people that are on a low carb diet and have plenty of fiber and protein in their diet are satisfied and they don't feel hungry. So they naturally eat less calories. If you're just counting calories, you're going to miss some. That does work well for some people. Like I really like Weight Watchers and their point system. I think they make it very easy, and that's a wonderful program. So I really encourage that, and I think they're careful about which foods they say are high in points and low in points. But counting calories is tedious. It's a tedious process, counting calories. So I think if you really focus on less carbs and sugars, and eating protein and high fiber foods and whole foods, you're going to eat less because you're not going to be as hungry. You're going to feel satisfied.
And that I'm a big fan of Weight Watchers too, and that was a real turning point for me. And when I did that, I realized that the role of bread and cheese, I just, now if I'm at an event and there's a cheese tray, you can bet I'm standing next to it, but it's not in my house. And when we were talking about yesterday, you were saying it's about the kinds of cheeses, but also what you were saying about hidden healthy breads is something I think people would want to know about.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, in general, bread, there's healthier breads, but you have to be really careful because the whole grain bread, the marketers that make breads can put that on the package if it's 1% whole grain. So you don't have to have very much whole grain in there for it to be whole grain bread. So to be sure, you have to get bread that's 100% whole wheat. 100% whole wheat. And I'll tell you, my patients do not like the taste of 100% whole wheat
like
bread.
Ezekiel bread. Is that what that is?
Yes. So other
and
breads
just
like
in the freezer
Ezekiel,
section.
Was that
Freezer
clear?
section,
She
Dave's
by the
said
way.
killer bread.
Ezekiel
Absolutely.
bread, Dave's killer bread. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're very like whole grain. They don't have the additives that's why it's in the freezer section, because it doesn't keep on the shelf. It doesn't have those chemicals in it. So absolutely, Dave's killer bread and Ezekiel bread and other sprouted breads, those can be very healthy, but there's still most of the bread, I would say most of the bread is not so healthy. And so you really should be very skeptical when you're eating bread. And it's a hard sell for a lot of us, because I have patients tell me, I'm really busy and I work and I just need something quick. And so I say, could you bring some hard-boiled eggs? Could you bring an apple with peanut butter? Could you bring Greek yogurt with granola and blueberries? I try to give them ideas that are just as quick and just as tasty, but don't have bread. So we kind of need to do the best we can to steer away from that being a normal thing that we do.
I know we're getting tight on time. I just feel like you've given us an encyclopedia of options now that really are helpful. Michelle, what did you think?
Yes, so awesome. Thank you, Dr. J. I feel like we're going to walk out of here much smarter. Here's a couple of my key takeaways for everybody. First of all, I'm going to repeat, you've said it several times, but I'm going to say it one more time. Lower the amount of processed food you are eating. Increase your plant-based food target 70% at least. Third, lower your sugar intake and bad carbs. So anything that has a high glycemic index. A couple of other things that you talked about is before you do anything drastic to change your lifestyle, you need to seek advice from your doctor and verify that you're not causing, complications if you're dealing with any type of disease or medication. But the big ones that I loved were really one size does not fit all. And your goal is that you really need to focus on a healthy lifestyle. So that means more than just the food, but the food, the movement, what are you doing to bring joy and happiness in your life? And that's what really makes a high quality, healthy life. So just phenomenal conversation, Dr. J. Thank you.
That is so well said. Of course, Michelle did forget to bring up that other question.
Well, poop. It's a good sign of health.
Let's just end it with the poop question.
All right, let's do
Bring
it.
us home. Let's talk about it.
So this is something that I talk to people a lot about. And I really see that as a testament to being a good primary care doctor, because if my patient can come to me and talk to me about their poop, I'm doing something right? Like they're that comfortable that they're going to talk to me about that. So a lot of people suffer from potentially irritable bowel syndrome and from digestive issues, because there is a couple key things to having good digestion. One is eating whole foods because of the microbiome, all these bugs in our intestines. And so they don't like processed food. The microbiome in your intestines where you digest things, they prefer fiber and they like whole foods. And so if you're eating a lot of sugar and manufactured foods, you're going to have the wrong bugs. And if you have the wrong bugs, there's no probiotic that's going to fix that. So you can take all the probiotics that you want, but until you fix the diet, you keep feeding the bad bugs and they're going to take over, and you're going to continue to have not just digestive issues and bad poop, but you're going to feel terrible, because most of our immune system, most of this inflammation is in your intestines. Isn't that amazing? Like most of our disease fighting tools are in our intestines. And so, it's really, really important that you're good to those bugs. And so giving them the right fuel, giving them fiber, and then being active, because if you're an active person, your bowels, they move better. So making sure that you're not too sedentary, and that if you have a desk job, get up every hour, use these alarms that people have. That helps your digestion. There's probably a lot of different directions I can go.
Well, I mean, like, how do you know if you've got the right turds?
So
This is what I love about
So
Fawn.
one I will share with you, you don't have to poop every day. So, a lot of people will say, well, Dr. Jenkins, I don't poop every day. And so is that weird? No, it's not weird. So there are people where it's normal, where they go a couple days and they don't poop. So do you have to poop every day? No. But if it's once a week, that's probably a problem. That's not that you're not letting go of the bad things in your body often enough. You're not letting out the trash often enough. And then it should be, I've heard gastroenterologists and others describe it as it should be like soft serve ice cream. So no one is ever going to eat soft serve ice cream ever again after that.
Well, they should be eating it anyway. So it's processed. So we don't want that anyway.
So you don't want it too hard. You don't want it too soft. If you have to do excessive amounts of wiping, then you probably don't have enough fiber content or a good microbiome. But that's kind of the general, like, what's normal. And then if you're seeing really black or mucus, or obviously if you're seeing blood or something, if it's really yellow, then that's a problem. Like, that means there's something that you should talk to your healthcare provider about. That's an issue. And don't be afraid to talk to your doctor about this stuff. We actually really like, this is what I love about family medicine.
To talk about.
We're there for you. We're there for you through everything. You're having a hemorrhoid, we got you. You're having problems with herpes, we got you. We're there for you. This is what I love about my colleagues. Like, this doesn't faze us. Talk to us about your poop. We don't care. We really just love the human body. We love our patients. We want to help you. Like, let us in your weird little world. It's okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, what was so funny with that, I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so gross. And I'm like, this is the one thing that every single person is going to listen to until the end.
They're going to remember this part above everything else. I went to the doctor and I found out this problem I had. Also.
Yeah. Well, that podcast really went to shit.
Yeah, but shit happens,
There you go. And with that,
This was awesome.
you are amazing and we love you. And someday I hope you can come back and find time in your schedule to do that. But everybody else, good luck with your diets. Eat right, stay healthy, do what Dr. J says, and have a great week. We'll see you next week on Hard Won Wisdom Podcast.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining the Hard Won Wisdom Podcast with best-selling author Fawn Germer and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Join us weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network. Visit hardwonwisdom.com for more on this podcast and for links to Fawn and Michelle's web pages and social media. Also, be sure to rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll see you next week.